Hey, Andre, we just got back from Detroit.
Yes.
Where we crawled around, sat in, and really got a lay of the land of the new EV Dodge Charger.
We did. So what are we doing here next to a previous generation police version of the Dodge Charger?
Well, in this podcast/video, we're going to have a lot of fun because we're going to talk to you and we're going to tell you everything about the new EV Charger. But first, we're going to do kind of an old versus new comparison. So we'll show you the old one, what made it so popular. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the fact that there might be a police version, or there probably will be a police version of the new Charger coming. So let's do this. Let's do a walk around to the old Charger, kind of bid it adieu.
Yes.
Before we go back to the office, sit in the studio, and give you guys all the details on the new one. And then you guys can compare the old versus the new and, see if Dodge has actually made it better or worse.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And there's a lot of history here, right? Because Dodge, obviously, the Charger name has been around for many decades. And also the Challenger name. The Challenger name they're no longer using, right? And the Charger, at least in the previous generation of the car, has always been this. It's been a four-door sedan, and it's been a big American, right, proper traditional sedan.
Yeah, and it's a little bit confusing now because I remember Challenger had two L's, so that reminded me that it had two doors.
Yeah.
And now the Charger is going to have both 2 and 4 doors.
Yeah.
But this actually goes back to when Stellantis was FCA, when it was Sybaris. These are the names of the company.
And Daimler.
And Daimler, because this actually harkens back to a chassis that was first introduced by Mercedes-Benz and then kept being improved over time. Now let's talk about where we got this Charger, because that's kind of interesting too. Obviously we've done it up as a police car because it is a police car.
Yeah, this is a 2019, right?
Yep.
And so this 2019, it used to belong to the Wyoming State Police. So this is a proper pursuit rated police car, and they sold it, right? There was an auction. They were done with this car, and we actually picked it up. It wasn't super cheap, but it also wasn't very expensive. But this is very special, dude, because this is all-wheel drive, and there's something special under the hood as well.
Yeah, it was only given to the police/Wyoming State Patrol.
Yeah.
They're probably very particular about that.
What did I say?
Police, it's patrol.
State Police.
State Patrol, yeah. So what makes this unique and what makes the new electric version so controversial is what's under the hood. So you could not get this as a civilian from Dodge. Only the police were able to do it. So let's pop the hood and show them what makes it super special.
Yeah, it was super special. You know how special it is? It was almost stolen.
Yeah, we actually just had it almost stolen, and we'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
But if you look, you'll notice that there are not 6, but 8 spark plugs.
Hey, podcast listeners and TFL Talk viewers. I wanted to take a minute to talk to you about a quick and simple way to sell your car or truck with the help of our new partner, HighRoad. With HighRoad's online portal, you enter your vehicle's VIN number or plate, mileage, and zip code, and you'll get competing offers from several qualified dealers in your area within seconds. You pick the best deal offered and follow through with the dealer to sell your car. No more managing scammy emails from buyers on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace. No more time wasted on no-show buyers. No bait and switch with a "will you take a check" excuse from sketchy buyers. Now keep in mind, these offers will be for trade-in values of your vehicle. If you want to go through the hassle of getting more for your car, that's up to you. But if you want to sell your car hassle-free and fast, go to tflcar.com and click Sell Your Car in the navigation menu. Or click on the HighRoad ad at the bottom of the website if you're on mobile, or click on the column if you're on a desktop. HighRoad makes it easy, and we like easy.
And 8 cylinders.
And 8 cylinders, which makes this a Hemi V8.
Yes.
That was unique to the police and patrol departments because it was, unlike the 6-speed, which you could get in all-wheel drive, this was paired with the old 5-speed. And so very reliable, more horsepower. I think originally this had, about 300, I'm guessing?
Yeah, but the later versions of the 5.7, I mean, they used it in trucks as well. But I think horsepower level on this was around like 345, 350, which is plenty of power. And of course, State Patrol Actually, it says State Trooper. I just saw like kind of faded.
Oh, so we were both wrong. It's State Trooper.
But different states call them different things, right? So the troopers used to use these cars, for high speed, chasing on the highway. And also it's all-wheel drive because it's Wyoming.
Plus the V8, right?
Plus the V8.
Now here's the crux of the issue, which we're going to get into over the next hour, and that is Dodge is trying to sell. It's worse than selling ice to Eskimos, right? They're trying to sell an EV to a group of buyers. The Society of Muscle, the Fraternity of Muscle, is that what they call themselves?
The Brotherhood.
The Brotherhood of Muscle. Sorry,
yes.
Tim Kuniskis. we'll get to Tim too in a second. The Brotherhood of Muscle, a vehicle that the Brotherhood of Muscle does not want, they hate. They want this.
Because they like V8s.
Right, they want this. They want this.
Yes.
They want to be able to put a supercharger on it or turbochargers. They want to be able to take it to the drag strip. They want to be able to roast the tires. They want that exhaust note. And EVs don't offer that, except Dodge has an interesting solution to the exhaust note, which we'll get to. So let's talk about this car. Now, if you look, you can see that it's gotten a lot of use. So, in fact, it has 152,000 miles on it, Andre, which is a lot. So we bought it from the police. Obviously, there were no stickers on it. The doors weren't white. This wasn't on it. They de-policify it. If you look on the hood, you'll see they took off all the...
Yeah, so if you look on the roof as well, there's a couple of plugs in the roof because they did have either lights or many, many antennas, right? Because they have a lot of communication equipment. Also on the trunk lid, there are a couple of different plugs right here because they would have many antennas and many radios that they would use day to day.
And then pop the back open. You get the key. There you go.
Hold on, I have the key.
All right.
There,
we actually got Steely's.
Yep.
And this one doesn't, the spare tire doesn't have it, but they sold it to us with, why don't you show them, Cole, actually full-on snow tires, which is nice in the winter. Not so good in the summer.
Yeah, these are Goodyear's Eagles, but they're winter tires, basically. So yeah, this is a very serious machine. And the Steely's were used because the steel wheel is a little bit tougher, right? It's heavier, it's tougher. But also, if it's bent, you can kind of, maybe knock it back into shape, and then get to the service department and actually replace it.
And then if you look, there's these cutouts here in the sound deadening material here and there, and then they had electronics with a computer that they had placed there. But we did do some upgrades to it, which besides obviously wrapping it, and that is, since it's a Hemi and since it's a V8, this is what we'll be talking about when we get back to the studio, we actually made it sound much better because police want their vehicles to be very quiet.
Yeah.
We didn't. So you want to start it up?
Yeah.
What we did was, it's actually very simple. They're resonators, a bunch of, I think there's 3 resonators underneath, and I think we took 1 or 2 of them off to make it sound like this. Start it up, Andre. Yeah, the police don't want that sound. They don't need to be targets when they're out patrolling, but we did, and so we made it sound much more Brotherhood of Muscle-like, right?
How was that?
That was really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's not a Hellcat.
Yeah, and then we also took it to the Colorado State Police, and then we found out what we could do in terms of labeling it. And they said as long as we don't use words trooper or police
or sheriff
or anything that signifies that it might be a police vehicle, we could put TFL Pursuit on it. So that's why TFL Pursuit's on it.
Yeah, and so they looked over this car. It has white doors, blacked out front and rear sections. And actually we used our TFL color is red and black, right? So we used some of our colors on some of our labeling. And then also Case and Alex and the team, they put a push bar in the front.
Yeah, we bought one of the same push bar that the police use. So we put that on there just to make it look more official, and then to make it less threatening to people who actually see the vehicle, because every time we're on the highway, everybody slows down.
Yeah.
We got the license plate personalized, so it says "Not Cop." And then I think I also bought a couple of these. These are surprisingly expensive. These little chrome plastic
dog dishes.
Yes, dog dishes center caps. I think those are like $50 a pop.
Yeah.
I think it was missing a couple of those. And outside of that, we repaired this light because the police had clipped the wire. So we just unclipped it, and then you did something on the inside. You want to show them, Andre?
Yeah.
Because obviously when police have this, or law enforcement has it, there's a computer there.
In the center console.
And so we bought kind of this center console and replaced it so that there's an armrest. And actually, it's in really good shape. I mean, to think about the fact that, there were law enforcement officers that had their belt on, that had all of their gear on, and sat in the seat for 152,000 miles. It's
And
not
also
bad.
there are cutouts in the seat. If you could tell here, the bolster down here, you see kind of there's a shape to it.
Yeah.
And so you could sit in it with a big belt.
But I think what made this car so, I'll sit on the other side, so appealing to many people, and why people love this, is because you could get it as a V6, you could get it as obviously a Hemi, then it went up in power, right? You could get the bigger engine all the way up to the Hellcat, so you could get this as a 700 plus horsepower. Now I'm
And also the red eyes, right? The red eyes came later.
Yeah, make it wider. But I'm sitting behind myself, and I have plenty of room. Look, plenty of headroom, and this seat is all the way back. And because this was a pursuit vehicle, there wasn't a little divider here, so the state patrol didn't use it, or the state troopers in Wyoming didn't use it to transport the bad guys. But Cole, why don't you hop in and we'll check out the front, and we'll kind of show you what made this such a popular family sedan. And we'll forget about the fact that it was a police car. Let's just look at it as a Charger, Andre.
I love getting into this car. Roman, remember TFL also owned the original Hellcat?
Yes.
The two-door, the Challenger. And the seat, it's kind of like your home armchair, right? You can sit down very comfortably. Let me put my seatbelt on just in case. Let me power this up.
Yep. Now, the one thing that I didn't love was this kind of elephant skin, right, dashboard, just this big expanse of black plastic in front of you. But besides that, everything else in here is easy to use. This is the old Uconnect system.
Yeah.
One of the best in the business, super easy.
Look, a backup camera.
Of course.
Yes.
And then because this is one of the base versions, we don't really have automatic temperature controls. We just have these little
Up and down.
up and down arrows, which works pretty well. And then I was just in a new Lincoln. All this was virtual. This is so much easier to understand.
And also auxiliary, right?
Yeah.
So this is kind of a special build of this car. So we have auxiliary switches here for additional equipment if we wanted it. Cruise control, of course, controls here. And look at my dash. So you can really tell it's all-wheel drive. There's an all-wheel drive symbol there. And also, talk about the reliability for a second, right?
Yeah.
So you said 152,000 miles. It's right there. Has oil life, oil pressure, oil temp. How long have we had this?
Almost a year now.
Almost a year.
Yeah.
So we've put a few miles on us.
I remember, I think we bought it for what? It was like $6,500. Just
Or like $7,000-ish,
yeah,
maybe?
$7,000. And that's, of course, something you don't usually get, which is your idle time and your total engine hours.
Yeah, so the idle hours on this were 2,084, and total driving hours, or total hours overall, 5,194.
Which speaks to kind of how well these cars are built. And when we drive it, you'll see that there are no squeaks. So, of course, reliability has a lot to do with maintenance. And, we've seen a lot of emails and comments from police officers from different departments. And it's like people, right? Some departments really maintain their vehicles and do all of the necessary upkeep, and some kind of just get abused. And I think the guys up in Wyoming, or gals up in Wyoming, did a good job in maintaining this, because it seems that there's really nothing wrong with it. Everything works. Everything does what it should do. The four-wheel drive works. It shifts well. There's no ticks from the engine.
No, and look, it's running. There's no vibration.
And even the steering wheel, right? 152,000 miles.
The steering wheel looks nice.
Usually this starts to get not just shiny, but actually the leather starts to wear off. And so I just feel like this, speaks to Dodge's reliability. And oftentimes when people say reliability, they think of Toyota, and they probably put Dodge last on their list. But from this one example, I think it's pretty incredible how well put together it is. Now, of course, modern cars should last over 100,000.
Yeah.
And maybe even 200,000. So, this could be half-life if treated well.
And also, it's got a column shift like a truck.
Yeah.
So that's why I really love this car also. You just kind of shift it, in a very manly
You
way.
want to show them the cool cop feature? It's a little button on the back.
Should we?
Yeah, we can.
Well,
yeah.
we have to talk about this, right? It was almost stolen.
Yeah, so I had it parked in my house I was traveling, I had it parked in my house for a few days, and we've got video of a guy. I guess apparently these are super easy to steal. Tommy was telling me that all you need is a USB port, and then you plug in a USB port reader, and then you have a program you download to your phone, and it basically creates a new key. So you do create new key, creates a new key, and then you can just drive it off using your phone. That's what he was telling me, and that's the problem. But there was somebody in front of my house, we'll show that video, who actually got in the car. Luckily, we have a camera, and then what happened was my wife saw the notification on her phone saying that there was some movement in front of our house, and she used the camera, which has a speaker on it, to say police are coming, which she did. She called the police, and they ran off. But she said it was apparently a professional job. The police came by, and they said, oh, yeah, don't keep Chargers or Challengers parked in front of your house. And there was a guy in a Kia who was like watching out. So they had a
lookout
person, yeah, and they were ready to take this off. And then in California, they do these things called street takeovers, where they just take over.
Well,
the
not
whole
just
street.
California. I mean, it's kind of across the country.
And then they do burnouts and they do crazy stuff, which I think they'd be kind of barking up the wrong tree, because this is all-wheel drive. So doing a burnout in this would be rather challenging.
Difficult.
Yes, it would be.
Yeah.
But yeah, so there's this long heritage of Chargers and Challengers, and people going to mainly drag strips, and especially the Hellcat versions, right? And actually, not even the Hellcats, right? You could supercharge this. There's supercharger kits for this that are.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hemi's been around,
you
the 5.7 for a long time.
Yeah, you could.
And all that is going away with the new one, which we'll talk about in a second, because we just spent an hour at a studio basically crawling through it. So at this video, you'll be able to actually see the difference. We'll show that too. I got in the back seat of the new one. But what do you think of this car, Andre?
I love it.
Yeah?
I mean, I probably do not need another sedan in my fleet.
Yeah.
But I'm tempted. Like, if you were to sell it, because we move cars through our fleet at TFL, I would be tempted to actually buy it. But I already have a couple of friends texting me, when is TFL selling this Charger?
You want to buy it?
Yeah, a lot of people are interested in this car because it is
unique
and large. Like you said, they're not, there are a lot of Camrys and Corollas in this world, and Civics and Accords, but this is kind of a traditional American sedan that's very large and very comfortable.
Hey, why don't we show them the shift lock so they can see how that works?
Okay, so the car is running.
Right, and as you know, Chrysler has these buttons behind the steering wheel that let you
For
change
volumes
the volume
and stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can hit this.
The middle one.
Yep, and it says Secure Park Active. Press button to disable.
So
right now, if I put on the brake, I cannot move the transmission.
And that's for when there's a law enforcement officer in here and they need to leave the car idling and they go
chase somebody.
The bad guy can't jump in here and drive away with the car. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, well, shall we take it for a ride and show them how it drives?
Okay.
All right, let's do that. All right, Andre, put it in gear. Let's go.
Let's do this. Wait.
Did you forget the button?
I did.
Is
there like a secret 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, you got to recite the Pledge of Allegiance backwards.
I don't know this.
And then you can put in gear. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It does drift a little bit.
Yeah. Well, if they do a dirt takeover, then
Yes.
they're good. They're good to go. So I love the way this car drives. How about you?
Well, yes, but also I think it's sprung differently. I think it has heavier springs because it's a little bit stiff over some bumps, and I think it's meant to have extra weight, like computers, like you said, extra equipment.
Fat bad guys?
Really huge bad guys.
Yeah, really huge muscly or fat bad guys. Yeah.
Yes.
It also has we didn't show it, but it's back there. It's got a little like hitch bar put in the back, so you could pull people out of ditches. Or
push people, with the front bar.
Front bar, yeah.
Not to like make them spin, but actually helping them, right?
Yeah.
Helping them through snowy conditions.
Yeah. But having said that, I just love the way it drives. It's a very comfortable car to drive. It's kind of classic American in that you've got a long wheelbase, and even though it's, I think, sprung a little.
Well, for this police version,
it still has a very comfortable ride. Maybe because the seats are cushy,
Yeah.
It's kind of everything that you'd want out of a classic American sedan.
All right, well, let's get a little bit more speed, right?
Yeah, that is the one surprising thing. I think a lot of those 345 Hemi horses have left the stable over the 150,000 mile that we put on the car, because it's not as quick as you would think.
It's also very heavy.
It is.
I mean, as far as cars go.
Yeah, there's a lot of weight.
It's a quite heavy car.
We took it. Don't I see the speed limit?
I'm still within the law.
All right, try it again.
I am the law.
You are. There's a bad guy who's breaking into my house.
Let's go.
Yeah, we actually took it to the drag strip. You can watch that video on all TFL, and it didn't exactly kill.
It didn't exactly catch a lot of bad guys.
No, it was pretty slow. I forget what it was, but it was certainly at a mile above sea level. It was like 15 or 16 seconds.
But there's nothing faster than radio.
There's nothing.
I mean, you can escape one car, but that will call another car, and eventually somebody will catch up to you.
And you're gonna have to have a very, very fast car to escape a helicopter.
Yeah.
So good brakes. The steering wheel doesn't shake like a scared poodle.
And it goes straight in line. The quality of this car is amazing, actually.
It is amazing. So before we talk about the new one and show you the new one, let's talk about the
transition, right?
The transition, yeah. So we'll spill the beans right away, but there is going to be a 6-cylinder version of it.
A gasoline-powered next-gen car.
Yeah, which is basically the same engine, the Hurricane 6, that's turbocharged and is right now living in the Wagoneer and the Grand Wagoneer.
And also coming to the Ram 1500.
Yes.
So I just drove the Ram 1500 with that engine. There's two of them, right? There's a standard output and the high output, and those two versions are coming to the next Dodge Charger. They call it 6-pack.
What's the horsepower?
So the new horsepower numbers are between 420 horsepower to begin with standard, and 550 horsepower for the high output Dodge Charger 6-pack.
Which normally would be quite the headline, but the problem is you're looking at a car that now has, in its highest form, over 700 horsepower.
Yes, so that's no longer a headline, but still, it's more than many other cars, right? Other than some high-powered luxury machines that are out there.
But the fact remains, Andre, if you're into American muscle, and you're not
you want to be number one.
Go left. Let's take it on the highway. If you're in American muscle and you're not crazy for Mopar, then you only have one choice left now, because if you wanted powered by that dinosaurs, you've got the Mustang, and the Mustang, and the Mustang, because the Camaro is gone, this is gone, which leaves you with the Mustang. Not a bad choice, but there are Mopar guys, who would sooner drive a Mustang, or gals, than
an electric version.
Eskimos.
Yeah. So the Mustang Dark Horse is out, but that's 500 horsepower. So 550 horsepower could be good, but also the GT500 Mustangs that exist also
over 700.
That's over 700 horsepower.
But if you can get past the fact that, and we'll show you this car in a second when we get back to the office, if you can get past the fact that it's electric, there is a very powerful version of the EV Charger coming.
They're calling it the Banshee.
The Banshee.
The Banshee.
Daytona
Banshee. They might even have an SRT logo somewhere in there too.
Technology.
Yeah, that's of course really famous with Dodge and FCA and Stellantis.
And that's going to have how many horsepower?
We don't know.
We're guessing at 1,000.
It could be up to 1,000 because it will be a high-powered 800-volt system that could have if they can juice it up and create a lot more horsepower.
So here's the thing about electric vehicles, I think, that rubs people the wrong way. When you look at, let's look at watches, right? I'm wearing an Apple Watch.
Okay.
But then you ask yourself, are any electronic watches or electric watches collectible? Maybe that first Casio that had the little calculator on it.
Yes.
Remember those?
Yes.
And then you ask yourself, are any, and you'll see why I'm talking about collectability in a second, are any electric cars collectible? Maybe the first Tesla Roadster.
Oh, by the way, nobody's passing us. Did you notice that?
Yes, I noticed that, except for the Land Cruiser.
They just finally saw the license plate.
And the reason I asked that question is because there's two parts to any car, right? There's the design and the style, like a watch.
Yeah.
So what it looks like, and then there's the mechanics of it, right? Like the watch that are self-winding, where you have this incredible, intricate gear set that allows this movement to be shifted into actually making the watch go around in a very precise way. And cars have the same thing, where the internals of the car are the engine and the transmission, all the stuff that gives the character, right? The internal moving parts. With electric cars, you don't have that. If you want to make this more powerful, you can add more cylinders, you can add a supercharger, you can add a turbocharger. If you want to make an electric car more powerful, this is what you said,
You
just
add
more electron,
more current.
yeah, or maybe a bigger motor,
Yeah.
which is already in there. And it's that character of the car that people connect with, right? It's the heartbeat of the car that makes it so lovable to many automobile enthusiasts, and that's what you're losing with electric cars. And I think that's what the brotherhood is whether they can say it in those terms or not, I don't know. That's what they're fighting against.
There's some of this. I was thinking about this a lot recently because there are, Ford people, there are GM people, there are Stellantis people, Dodge people, right? And why does that exist? Not just because your father or mother drove one, right? But because you gravitate to an engine design, right? It could be a 302 Ford, right? It could be a a classic Hemi that you're drawn to, right? There could be another engine, an LT1 for GM. Are you losing some of that, right? Are you losing some of that character, like you're saying? But Tim Kuniskis and the Dodge crew, they think they've cracked the code, at least, right? I mean, they talked about power. They talked about their Fred Zonic system that we'll show you soon, and also modifying it.
I think those guys are smart enough to know that they should be terrified, that they're really going to have a hard time selling electric Chargers to the hardcore V8 Hemi enthusiasts. And look, as you know, recently a lot of people have retrenched. There's been kind of a pullback on electrifications. Right now it seems like more people are comfortable with hybrids or plug-in hybrids.
Sure, yeah.
And what really is interesting is that Hurricane is coming after the electric car. So the electric car comes in 2024.
This summer.
Yeah, whereas the Hurricane-powered ones come in 2025. Anyway, let's stop here. Let's go in the office, and we've put this off long enough.
Okay.
And what we can do is we can show them the new Charger, and then give them what we think about it, and you guys can decide whether you like the old or the new.
And also, if a new police car is coming.
Yeah, let's talk about the new cop car too.
Yeah.
All right, Andre, I think we kept them waiting, like I said, long enough. Let's show them the new EV Chargers and Challengers.
Whammo!
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, now, the one thing I want to show you, though, which I think we should start with, which is kind of the issue that I think Dodge is going to have. And normally, when we put up a video, we have comments that are kind of all over the board. They're positive, they're negative, they're, telling me that I'm too fat and bald and that...
Or my hair is wrong, or
your hair
I'm
is
wearing the wrong shoes.
Yeah, but this time, reading the comments, it was a little. All right, here's the video that we put up on Car, and here are some of the comments.
So we did two videos, right?
Yes.
From the event in Detroit. We were in Detroit. We saw 3 cars in person. These were one of them was the 4-door. 2 others were the 2 doors. The 2-door electric ones, or all of the electric ones, have a name, Charger Daytona. So Daytona designator means that it's an electric version of the car. 6-pack that we mentioned before means it's gasoline powered. So the Daytonas are coming first.
So I'm going to read 4 comments at random. 4. This is just at random, or maybe 5. All right, so 4Runner510 said the Dodge brothers are rolling in their grave.
Whoa.
Build cars that Americans want, not you corporations want, and then shove them down our throats.
That's a comment.
That's a comment that is a theme that runs throughout many of these comments. And just so you understand why I say that, Pure2951 said, it's just another electric car. It's nothing special among the sea of other electric cars. Now, user HV blah, blah, blah said, would prefer the camera showed more cars and less people, but appreciate the peak nevertheless. So they didn't like the fact that you were rolling on me as opposed to the car.
Okay, so my fault.
Okay. Oh my God, I was interested until you said exhaust note. So freaking stupid. Holy crap, they actually did the intelligent thing and made it a hatchback. One of the things that bugs the heck out of me is the current Mustang and most others modern cars is that they're sloping rear windshields similar to the hatchbacks of the 80s and 90s, but they're tiny little lids. I'll never convert to an electric car or truck until they figure out battery longevity versus cost. You should lease this. Introducing, I did more than 4.
That's okay.
I think I'm old. I can't get excited about an electric Charger or Challenger. Anyway, you get the gist, right? But there are 2 interesting things here besides all the hate for the fact that they've gone electric. And that is, number 1, is that the new cars are hatchbacks.
Yes, which I love utility. I'm a pickup truck guy. I love usability. I love that the rear seats fold down. You could lift back in the back. They said you could put 4 spare tires if you go into the track, for example. You mentioned putting a bicycle, laying down a bicycle.
Without taking it apart?
Yeah, laying down the bicycle, maybe at least 1, maybe 2 in the back there. You can bring many different things with you, or 5 people.
Yeah, and then the other thing they talked about is the Fredzonic exhaust.
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Fredzog. Fredzog is a 3-pointed star.
And people in the comments are saying it looks like the Mitsubishi logo. It actually goes further back than that. It goes back to old Chrysler.
Old Dodges, old Chryslers,
yeah.
Yes. So the Fredzog is the name of the logo. Fredzonic chambered exhaust is basically a newly patented thing, or I think patent pending technology that Dodge is introducing here, which is basically a speaker with kind of a chamber behind it. And the chamber is like an organ pipe, right? It amplifies the sound. And they're saying that you could play, of course, the sounds that match the speed of the vehicle, or you could kind of like rev an engine or rev the motor, so to speak. And the sound will be as loud as the current Hellcats, or maybe even louder than the current Hellcats. And also you could shut that system off and be almost silent in this car.
So you're trying, remember I was talking about character, so you're trying to introduce character by reintroducing the sound.
Yes.
I'm going to hold judgment on that. I did get to hear it. I think there's a video.
So we had the concept video of this. Mm-hmm. They had the Fredzonic concept. This was a very popular short that we did, you and I. This was the previous year, not this year, but in 2023. And they said they modified that for the production car, but we haven't heard the production car yet.
That's pretty cool, huh? So the cool thing about that is it's not actually a speaker. It's actually like a tube.
And they're blowing air through it, so it's like an organ, really.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll reserve judgment to see what it's like. There are other car companies that have done this. Hyundai has done the same thing, where you can hear the car based on the exhaust note. BMW
based on the speed.
Based on the speed.
Yeah.
BMW has a note that was done by famous Hollywood
composer.
Yeah. What's his name? I can't think of his name now.
I forgot also.
I forgot. Anyway,
but it's like a symphony.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's like a musical sound.
So there's very smarter people than us working on this. So we'll reserve judgment until we drive it. The first reaction, of course, would be that it's silly and stupid. Just give me a real V8. But it could be fun. It could be interesting. You could buy different exhaust notes.
Yeah, different tones or something.
Yeah, it could be interesting. And they actually aren't just using a speaker, which is cool. They're using something that feels more real.
So here's my rub on the Fredzonic chambered exhaust. When the first moment I heard about it a year and a half ago when they introduced the concept, I thought, my goodness, Dodge sold it. Because what I thought was happening is there was an electric motor underneath the car, and then there was kind of this pipe, organ-style sound pipe coming off of it. And I thought they were using actual sound of the motor, but it's a generated sound by a speaker.
That's amplified through these pipe organ-like
pipes. They almost made it real.
Yeah.
But there's a step that's not real in there.
All right, now if you're looking at the picture and you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see that I'm kind of pointing to the new four-door, actually the old four-door Charger.
Yes.
But here's a comment that I want to read. that I think you'll appreciate,
Okay.
and I certainly appreciate. I hope someone, this is from Man on Wheels, I hope someone at Dodge has lost sleep over the chaos they've caused with the constant flip-flopping of names between Charger, Challenger in the recent years, causing people they probably knew personally to get names wrong when referring to the car or others, and now making it more confusing with the new Charger that looks like what we've been trained to call the Challenger. May the broadcasters in the police chase video remain ever confused. And he's exactly right. Why, Dodge? Just stop it, okay? So, it took me a long time to figure out, like I said, that the Charger and Challenger, the way you tell them apart, was that the Challenger had 2 L's, so 2 doors, and now they've gone back to this silliness again. It's mind blowing. Just keep freaking the name that you had on the previous generation and stop confusing not only your buyers but us.
I'm okay with it.
You are.
So,
What was this?
Why-
I'm sorry,
why
what
am
was
I
this?
okay with
What
it?
was this like silliness that they're taking the Challenger name and putting it in the vault or whatever the hell they're calling
it's
it?
in the vault.
Why
They
do
own
that?
the name, but they're not using it.
Why?
I have no idea.
Okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt.
Okay.
And let's hope that there's a 2-door coming.
Or a SUV Challenger
Oh, for
coming.
fudge's sake, I hope not. Oh, yeah, like the Mach-E Mustang. That's gone over really well with
Ford.
With Ford, yeah.
Yeah.
Take a page out of that lesson. I'm going to get out here. I'm going to do a little bit of a rant here, Andre.
Uh-oh.
But I think it's important rant, all right?
Okay.
We're living in a time of transition, and there are good ideas and there are bad ideas.
Yes.
And I was hoping that manufacturers would realize what are bad ideas as opposed to what are good ideas. So when like Tesla introduces a very bad idea, the other car manufacturers think to themselves, gosh, that's a very bad idea. We'll leave them out there on the branch will break and they will fall. But no, Andre, there's so many bad ideas that are now being picked up by auto manufacturers and copied and put in other cars. And it's astounding. I think the best example of that is a square steering wheel, or in other words, a yoke. I can't think of a
Yes.
worse, we've got over 100 years of car development and the steering wheel has worked perfectly. And then somebody decides, you know what, let's take something off of a race car
Or a video game.
or an
Yeah.
airplane and slap it on a real car. And
Yeah.
then other manufacturers have said, you know what?
Oh, that's awesome.
Let's do that as well.
Like Lexus.
Yeah, like Lexus. I'll give you another example of that.
Yeah.
I was just reviewing the new Lincoln Nautilus.
Yes.
And and this is my opinion. So I understand. I was talking to Kamal, who actually likes this feature, and he thought he worked very hard to place it in the car. But Kamal, I really don't understand the utility of that. And that is, they copied, and maybe they didn't copy it. Maybe Tesla was the one who invented it, but I think they were. The fact that you can control your air vents through the screen. And
The digital way of controlling it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And it was one of my most hated features in our Teslas, because the problem with that is that you kind of look on the screen and you kind of have to guess as to where you want the air to blow. So obviously there's a pictorial that shows you now it's blowing on my,
On my
balls,
chest or
right?
whatever.
Or on my chest or on my head.
Yeah.
But it isn't, right? Because it's not precise.
Okay.
Whereas with the little manual one, you can just exactly put it to where you want it to. That's problem number one. Problem number two, it's always buried in a screen. So what's easier, Andre? Oh, I'm getting a little too cold, so I'm going to go bloop and flip it over. Or I'm getting a little too cold, but look, I'm in the navigation.
going into the
I'm in
menu.
Apple CarPlay. Now I have to switch over to the native system of the car. And then I have to go into the HVAC screen. And then I have to find where the thing is. And I have to ditz around with it to find out exactly where I want the air to blow. So it's things like that are now permeating the auto industry. And I'm bummed out about the fact that they're copying bad design.
Can I?
In my opinion.
Okay.
Obviously.
Can I give you my 2 cents?
Of course.
Just
I'll shut up.
really
Yeah.
quick. No. This is a really cool
And does
conversation.
this have that or not? I forget. Does
No, it has real vents.
It has real vents. Yeah.
Yes.
So the Charger EV.
So don't worry about
Yeah,
people.
real vents.
Don't worry about this.
Worry about the name, but not not the vents.
Okay. I found a use case where the digital vent is helpful. because there is one use case where I like this feature. Otherwise, I don't like this feature. The feature where I love this, the digital control of the air vents and the climate control system, is when you're by yourself, or let's say it's you and your child in the back, and you can control the entire system from one place. You don't have to reach over to your child's seat or control their vent. You can do it all in one place.
Fair enough, but I have never been in an instance where the vent that's all the way on the right side
Is affecting you
is
somehow?
affecting me somehow.
Yeah.
I've never been.
Well, what if
I've never
it's
had
your
it-
passenger? It's affecting. Your wife is asleep.
Unless they're 2 years old, which shouldn't be in the front seat anyway.
Right.
Right. They can. Oh, so she's asleep. So your wife's asleep.
And you want to make her more comfortable, so you adjust the system so it blows more gentle, or cools it
Andre,
down, or whatever.
And you know when you ever start the sentence with all due respect,
Yeah.
which I'm going to start the sentence. I'm like, if that were me sleeping and you
Yes.
start adjusting my vents, I'd be like, what the are you doing? I would be insulted by that. I'm like, do not touch my vents.
Well, why?
Because that's
But I
those
care
are my,
about you, and
No,
I'm
because
trying to
sleeping,
make you-
because I'm sleeping and I'm comfortable, and now you're dicking around with my vents, making me uncomfortable and waking me up.
Okay.
Okay, that would just with all due respect.
Okay.
That would be my don't. Those are my vents. You have your vents.
Okay. That's fine.
Don't
That's
mess
fine.
with my vents.
That's fine.
Okay, I understand you're being considerate, but don't.
So,
All right, so let's talk about
the name.
Yeah.
Well, we should talk about the powertrain next.
All right.
I'm okay with the naming. I'm not old enough. I wasn't around in the 70s and the 60s. I didn't grow up in that era, so I don't have an attachment to the name Charger or Challenger. So I'm kind of okay that they called it Charger from now on. It's fine with me.
until the SUV Challenger comes along.
Okay, but so they're addressing the sound. We talked about this, or they're trying to address the sound, right? So they have the Fredzonic chambered exhaust system stereo. Now, power. Let's talk about power.
A lot.
First of all, all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So there's something common between the police vehicle we just drove and these new ones. All-wheel drive is going to be available on all of them.
This might be a good place to remind our listeners and viewers that we owned a Hellcat,
Yes,
and that it was impossible to launch.
because it had skinnier tires and 700 horsepower, 707 horsepower.
It would
roast them.
It would roast them in any gear.
Yes.
And the only way we had the automatic that you could actually launch it would be on the drag strip, start in second gear, right? When the light turned green, you'd kind of feather the throttle until it hooked up, and then you'd floor it, and then you'd flick it over to automatic, and then you'd take off. But it was really hard to get quick launch times on it because 9 out of 10 times you could not judge at what point it was hooking up or not. So the all-wheel drive is a much, in my opinion, especially in places like Colorado where we live, where all-wheel drives, what happens here in Colorado, guys, is somebody moves here, and the first winter they're like, I could make it with my two-wheel drive pickup truck by putting stuff in the bed and making it heavier, or my front-wheel drive car, and then they go up to the ski area
With the old tires.
with the all seasons in the middle of February, and the next time they come back down to the front range, they trade that car in an all-wheel drive car. It's very important to us here in the snow country, and so I love the fact that it's all-wheel drive, and then you can actually put that power down. Now, of course, it changes the driving dynamic. It's going to be much harder to do burnouts. You could probably do four-wheel burnouts, but I don't think they're as cool. But nevertheless, for those true of muscle, the four-wheel drive actually might be a deterrent for them buying it as opposed to a plus.
Oh, okay. I see
What
where
do
you're
you
going.
think?
I
What do you
see
think?
where you're going. But remember, and we haven't experienced this, by the way. We didn't drive the car. But they said there's donut mode, drift mode, launch mode, drag race mode. They have many, many different software modes for this car. And donut mode means to me that you're hooning it. So they're introducing this concept to the vehicle. I mean, you can defeat traction control system in a Tesla, right? There is a way to do that as well. Or you can defeat the traction control system in the Rivian.
Is there an electric car where you could do a torque and power split where it's not 50-50 or 70-30, but 100% rear or 100% front? I know they've done that. I know there's that ability in a Mercedes AMG wagon. You could do that, so you could actually just roast the rear tires by just, and that's of course a gas powered car where you basically disconnect the front wheel drive and just and I suppose there's nothing preventing them. It's just a bit of code from allowing it to be a drift mode.
I mean, in fact, many vehicles, like even the Rivian trucks, where the rear axle can be disconnected on the highway for efficiency, and you're only using the front power just to coast along on the highway, and you save energy. you can do various versions of that, right? You can put all the power to the back, distribute it side, you can do many different things.
And then there's that button on the steering wheel.
Power shot.
Yeah, where you
adds 40 horsepower.
And a lot of the
right
stuff
there.
we don't know yet. I mean, obviously we were touching the cars and had hands-on with them, but a lot of the facts aren't out yet. They haven't released them.
So and also like price.
Yeah, if you're
that's a huge
price,
one.
MPGE.
Yeah.
But we do know many things about the EV. So let's start with the size of the batteries.
Yeah, so they're all approximately 110 kilowatt hours, which is a good size battery. So a lot of Teslas are below 100, right? Some are at 100. So 110 is a decent amount of battery, and it lives kind of in the center of the vehicle, right? Like most electric cars. So the battery is basically between the wheelbase, and it's right there, and it's heavy. It's heavy.
Gotcha.
That's my other rub with this car.
Yeah, how much does it weigh?
They stated the curb weight of the two-door. By the way, the two-door and four-door are about the same wheelbase and approximately the same length. So they're both kind of similar. But the curb weight, they listed at 5,800 pounds.
Wow, that's a lot. Batteries are heavy.
My Chevy Colorado 4x4 pickup truck weighs under 5,000 pounds, Roman. So this car is heavy.
All right, having said that, there's an upside to that. When you actually stand near the car, there is a sense of presence. There's definitely a sense. Ralph Gilles, who is the head of design for Stellantis, has done most of the muscle.
His team, yeah.
And his team has done most of the muscle cars, going back all the way to the Magnum, if you remember those days. And one of the comments that I read was, it's just another electric car. Well, this car definitely feels different than most electric cars. First and foremost, it feels big, and you're right, there's a sense of heft about it. But when you get behind the wheel, it definitely feels like you're not sitting in a Tesla or an Ioniq, or pick any of the other electric cars out there. It definitely has a feel of presence and of power. And part of that, I think, comes from that really cool design where they've got that little winglet that is in
the front of the car.
In the front of the car. So what they did was they created a little scoop that actually channels air, and whether that's aerodynamic or not, I'm sure they would say it probably is, but it is a unique feature that is something new that we haven't seen from any of the electric cars. So they really did go out of their way to make this feel as much as possible as an American classic muscle car.
Yeah, and by the way, the moment we entered that area where we were filming the cars, I knew there were Dodges. They're unmistakable. You could see this car from 200 yards away or 300 yards away, and you will say, yes, this is a Dodge Charger. You could see it. It's very, distinct for them. I love that fact. You will never mistake it for a Tesla or anything else. And that slope, that's kind of, they drew inspiration. That they call it the R-wing, right? So the R-wing is basically a spoiler in the front that makes the car look taller, but it's still aerodynamic because there's a pass-through below it. And that's kind of Daytona nose, right?
Yeah.
They called it Daytona
and so
for that reason.
We had three vehicles that we could look at that were there. The one that's behind us is the orange four-door, which won't go into production until 2025, right?
Next year.
But they had the Scat Pack and they had the RT. So what's the horsepower in the RT and Scat Pack?
So the RT is kind of the base new car for the Dodge Daytona RT. It will launch this summer, they said, with 496 horsepower. So almost 500 horses from two electric motors. So all-wheel drive, 496, and they're calling it Stage 1. They also have multiple stages of power that they'll be offering. Then the Scat Pack was the next car we looked at, which is the next level. Same motors, so they're kind of detuning the motors for the RT, but the Scat Pack power is 670. So now we're getting somewhere, right? Now we're approaching the 700 horsepower mark.
Or maybe they're not detuning the motors. Maybe they're just not giving it as much
less current.
But then there's also a decreased amount of range, right? So what's the range of the RT?
RT is like 313.
Yeah, and the
Scat Pack 260.
All right,
so you get more power and less efficiency.
Yeah, and they're rolling on pretty big tires, as I recall.
Yeah, the fronts are 305 cross sections, which is already pretty fat. The rears are 325s, really wide tires, and they're basically supercar tires. They're Eagles, I believe. a version of that tire. They're not slicks. I mean, they're still tread, but they're really fat tires to put all that power to the ground.
Now, one of my kind of litmus tests for how much engineering went into a car is, does it have a frunk? And we actually in the video opened up the front hood, and it has a frunk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
small one.
It's a small one. It's about the size of a roller bag that you would put on an airplane, but it's there. And the reason I use it as a litmus test is because, there's a lot of things that live under the hood besides the engine. So there's a lot of other things that still have to happen. You still have to cool and heat the car.
Yeah.
You still have to. By the way, does it have a heat pump, or is it a? Do we know? I don't think we know.
Well, this is the new Stella Large platform, they call it. Stella Large is the platform underlying this car. I don't remember about the heat pump, but you're right. There are many components that could live there. And people, like, for example, a Chevy Blazer EV, you open the hood, there's basically lots of plastic covers, and there's no frunk, right? So different manufacturers are approaching it differently. Dodge offered the frunk. The Stella Large platform that underpins this car is they call it multi-energy. So you could put a straight six turbocharged engine in it, or you could put electric motors and batteries in it.
And then we did get to sit inside of them, and I kind of, like I said, in the current one, I kind of find the current one has this giant sea of black elephant skin. This one doesn't. This one is much more visually interesting. There is ambient lighting
This the red strip that we saw.
that surrounds the car. Big fat steering wheel. They kept more or less a traditional shifter, so I'm not going to rant about rotary shifters or push button shifters or buttons. Yeah. So I love that fact about it. And there's a lot of room. I also got to sit in the back, and you said there's an inch more room. It's basically an inch longer than the current
The
one.
wheelbase is an inch longer, yes.
So hopefully there's an inch more room, but I sat in the back, and I was rather comfortable.
Yeah, and the roof does slope back, of course, but you still have headroom, right?
Yeah.
When you were sitting back there. So I think, and by the way, 0 to 60 time, they stated for the Hatchback at 3.3 seconds. But here's the rub, right? If you line up against a Plaid, Model S Plaid,
You're going to get beaten.
you're going to get beat.
Or a Roadster,
So,
which Musk said is going to do a second.
but right now, if you line up against a Plaid in a Hellcat, you're also going to get beat. So
It's funny because you go to the drag strip. We've done that a lot, and nobody likes to line up against Teslas. I think they just feel like they're too quick, but that speed has not been earned, but has been given. And
the other car that's like that is the Lucid.
yeah,
the Lucid Airs.
but like we said, there might be, and they had it there. They had the prototype Banshee, so there might be a quicker one coming. And like we were talking about with electric vehicles, it's not hard to turn up the wick. It just takes a little bit of software. The question is, of course, how can you repeat that? How do you have to let the batteries cool down or heat up? And speaking of that, what's the charging rate on the new EV chargers? How
It's
fast
not
can they charge?
super high. It's like 180, 185 or 187 kilowatt.
Yeah, it's not
Which is, some others are at what, 350, right?
400.
360.
400 volt architecture, right?
Yeah, for these first cars.
Right.
They're talking about the Banshee having the 800 volt architecture, which means the charging will be quicker. We don't know what it will be, but it will be quicker. And also more power comes with that, right? I was listening to Sam's podcast with Nicole and Robbie.
Wheel bearings, great
Wheel
podcast.
Bearings,
Yep.
great podcast. They were discussing the Charger as well. And Sam found a couple of other interesting details. Sam talked about how there is race prep modes. So, for example, if you know you're going to drag race or you know you're going to the track, you could actually warm up the battery as if for charging, but it's not for charging.
but
It's
for
actually for racing. And also cool down modes. So if you pulled, you did a couple of drag races in quick succession, you can actually try to cool down the batteries a little bit so performance is repeatable, right? So every time you go, you're basically at the same state. So I think that's cool. They're thinking about all those things. There's also what I loved about the tech on this car. There is a performance recorder. So you can record your experience using the car's cameras and all the data that the car has about itself. And you could share it with friends, or you could upload it somewhere, or you could share that experience with others. The brotherhood.
I had a scary thought, Andre.
What?
Can I share it with you?
Yes.
You know how we talked about the Challenger name?
Yes.
What if they do the two-door, but don't do a hatch, but do a regular trunk and call that the Challenger?
Whoa, why?
Did I just scare you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Right, because that would be
finally
easy.
scared me.
Right? Or you could just get rid of the hatch and just do a trunk and call it the Challenger.
No, I don't think that would go there. Why? Why take away the hatch?
Why did Subaru do it? Why did Honda do it?
I don't know.
Right? They also did it.
Yeah.
They gave us, trunks instead of hatches, and everybody loved the hatch. So look, overall, Andre, I gotta say, I like the cars. I like the design. We didn't obviously drive them. I love the feel of sitting behind the wheel. And I have one hope, and that is, if you guys out there love your Hellcats and your Chargers and your Challengers, don't close your minds immediately. There's that thought, you'll take my internal combustion Hellcat out of my cold dead hands. And I understand that. We've had those. We've had the TRX. We've had
We love those machines.
We love those. We've had the Raptor R. I get that. But try just going into this open-minded and at least, take the politics out of it. Unfortunately, electric cars have become political. And for some people, they're a virtual signaling vehicle. Hey, I'm saving the earth. And for others, it's the exact opposite, depending on what side of the aisle you live on. Can you just put that aside for a second when you're looking at this car, and maybe test drive it, or maybe watch the videos and see what the reviews are like when we finally get behind the wheel? I kind of feel like Dodge probably should have led with the Hurricane-powered ones as opposed to the EV ones. Because people, like this comment said, don't like having things shoved down their throat. And I think give people, or better yet, how about a choice, like Porsche's doing with the Macan, where you can go in the dealership and you can have one or the other.
Well, next year you will have a choice. It's just coming next year once again.
Yeah, but you're sending a signal by going EV first.
Yeah, you are sending some signal. I don't know why they chose it to do it this way, but by the way, it's built in Canada, so in Windsor. So it's still North American based.
So it should qualify for the...
Not the first year.
Because the batteries...
Because the batteries are made by Samsung in the first year.
Having said that, we were just at the Toyota dealership. That's a whole other story that you guys are probably following. But I was talking to a salesman, and he was saying what they do is, for the vehicles that don't qualify for the rebates, they do qualify as a lease. Mm-hmm. So they do a lease that has...
And you get benefits.
That you can buy out in 2 months, which gives you the tax break. But then 2 months later, so you lease it for 2 months and then you buy it.
And also, Tim talked about this, that leasing is becoming more prevalent in the industry.
Right. I got my phone here, right? Nobody, you usually keep this for a couple of years and you get the next
then
one.
You give it back, yes. Upgrade it. So I want to end on a couple more notes.
All right, go for it. Let me do that when you just said Tim.
Tim.
So talk about, Tim just did a commercial. Tim...
Kuniskis?
Yeah, who is the CEO of the brand.
He's also the CEO of Ram.
Yeah.
And the Dodge brand.
He moved his way up.
Yes.
He did a commercial where he went back in time. It was rather cringy. Went back in time and talked with the Dodge brothers.
Yeah.
And he was really working hard to try to convince the Brotherhood of Muscle that the Brotherhood of E-Muscle is the way to go. Don't do that. I would say...
Well, so first of all, it was CGI.
Yeah.
So it was computer generated. He was meeting with the original, founding brothers of the company. If he did want to do that, I would have preferred actors. Like, let's say you hire two people who are the Dodge brothers and you actually show up there. Once again, authenticity, right? In a way, because you're actually using people and you're using vehicles in the real world and you're actually talking to them.
You can tell that story in a different way that doesn't feel like you're kind of playing to your audience. And I'm not saying that the typical Tesla buyer is going to all of a sudden get a Dodge, but I always say be authentic. If you're going to sell electric cars, just don't make excuses, lean into it, and sell electric cars. Maybe the next commercial you do is you take the Scat Pack and you line it up against the old Hellcat on a racetrack and see which one, wins at the end of the day. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be the Scat Pack, not the Hellcat. And so maybe slowly you could chip away at that, take the dead thing up from my hands, my cold dead hands, and start to convince people that this is not the end of the world, and that maybe new technology has, or maybe people have, I'm saying that and I'm thinking to myself, people are reading stories about how chargers don't work and how people are getting range anxiety, and so it's a big mountain to climb. But maybe maybe the manufacturers could educate people as well as sell electric cars as opposed to just selling electric cars and saying, these are better, believe us. Anyway, you had some
I
points.
have 2 points.
Yeah, go for it.
2 points I want to close with, perhaps. And I think they're both positive. There is another vehicle on sale right now that does not apologize for inefficiency. It's electric. It's called the Hummer EV. The Hummer EV came out and it said, I want to be tall, I want to be heavy, I want to be powerful, I want to be bald, I want to be square. It's doing all those things, being a Hummer and also being electric. If it's successful, we can reserve that to another time. But this car, I think the new Dodge Daytona has kind of the same thing going on. It has fat tires, it's huge, it's heavy, it's semi-powerful, so it doesn't apologize for any of those things. It just says, here I am going to be this way. So I wanted to draw that parallel.
Yeah, the issue, of course, is when we don't know pricing on this, is that the Hummer
what
EV
is the price?
over $100,000, and
Right.
then it doesn't become a canary in a coal mine. It just becomes kind of an outlier.
Okay. Secondly, let's talk about the Hurricane for a second and
Yeah.
close, because
You drove it.
enthusiasts. Yeah,
I drove it.
Enthusiasts, right? Enthusiasts love modifiability. They want to modify their vehicles. They enjoy power. And one of the most popular engines, classic engines, is a 2JZ straight six turbo from Toyota. People love 2JZs. There's a whole culture around.
That was a lot driven by the Fast and Furious franchise.
Yeah.
And so was
So was this.
Yes, exactly.
Dodges are in the Fast and Furious franchise. And I think in the future, people will be tuning Hurricanes. They will be modifying them. They will be strapping giant turbochargers to them. So I think there's still some hope that the Hurricane straight six twin turbo
So are you
will be
saying,
successful.
saying like Vin Diesel shows up in this, and then the character Roman's like, dude, what the heck? Where's your old classic?
I've got a Hurricane, man.
Or better yet, I've got an EV. And then
Hear my Fred Zonic.
and then the girls dance, and the music starts, and the street racing begins. Is that what you're saying?
Family.
Family.
Yes,
family. Yeah,
Yes.
family. But wait, Andre, there's more.
Yes, so we originally talked about police cars, and we said, well, what about the electric version of the new Dodge Charger Daytona?
Yeah, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, you'll note that the thumbnail is an electric Charger EV police car that
Yes.
we used AI to generate. And it looks pretty badass, actually.
Yeah, I would definitely pull over for this.
I would too, yeah.
I would definitely pull over. So during the background there, with the media, somebody asked the CEO, Tim Kuniskis, about the possibility of the police Charger Daytona car, the electric one. And he said they're not announcing anything at this time. It was kind of like a future-looking question, but he said they're considering all possibilities. But the fact is, they're still selling many, many cars for the police departments, right? I actually traveled with Case and Tommy a couple of years ago to the police academy in California, and most of their cars are Chargers.
Yeah, I would bet that there's a police pursuit Charger
Version of it.
version definitely coming. And we know that because GM and Ford aren't sitting on their hands, and they're also selling electric EVs and hybrid EVs.
Yeah, for example, the Mach-E.
Hybrid EVs. Hybrid police
Hybrid
cars
cars.
and electric police cars.
Yes.
It's been a long video already.
So the Mustang Mach-E has a police version. The F-150 Lightning has a police version. In fact, the Ford Explorer, the hybrids, are now strictly meant for police use. They love hybrids, they tell me. Ford told me this.
Why?
Because you're idling kind of in quiet mode. You're not wasting as much fuel.
Or you're not idling.
Or you're not idling at all. I mean, you're sitting on electricity while the vehicle is powered up. You're not actually running your gasoline engine. They like that. They save fuel.
A lot of fuel, especially if you're, charging at night. You could save a lot of money.
Exactly, because you can charge at a lower cost.
Exactly.
Right? And then, like the new version of the Blazer, Chevy Blazer EV also has a police version.
And I know, like I said, we just had this conversation about people who hate electric cars, but there is a huge upside to electric cars, and that is lack of maintenance. There's no oil to change.
Right. You're not changing brakes
There's
as
not,
often.
because you're using regen.
Yeah.
There's no coolant.
Well, there's some coolant.
Yes,
because
but
batteries
you
need coolant.
But you don't change it.
But not supposed to change it
Right.
at least for the first, I don't know, 100,000 or 150,000 miles. So, so that's all good.
And then let's crush a rumor right now or a misconception. I keep hearing this over and over in all of my podcasts, right? People think that electric cars are like this phone, and that is after 2 years, you're down to 50% of the battery or less.
No.
In fact, studies have shown that Tesla vehicles lose on average 1% a year. So that means after 10 years, you may be down 10%. And why is that? Because batteries in your phone are not water cooled.
Or climate controlled.
Or climate controlled, which
Yeah.
batteries in electric cars are. So
Yeah.
so let's not go there with comments. Electric batteries, unless you're talking about a Leaf, which isn't climate controlled, they have a much longer lifespan than your phone battery.
And also, there's another misconception, and I had this too, until I talked to some experts, is that every battery is the same. Every automotive, no. Even the prismatic cells versus pouches versus cylinders,
They're all different.
versus voltage.
Yeah,
they're all different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's
it just depends.
And there's kind of we're at the beginning of this, and so at some point it'll consolidate. But when you're talking about charging cycles, the phone does not compare to an electric vehicle.
But also where I'm getting at with not every battery is the same, there is an opportunity to innovate, right? Automakers like Lucid and Tesla and others and Dodge can actually innovate, make new chemistries and new battery components that can actually put them ahead of others.
Earlier in this podcast/video, I was saying, how is Dodge going to sell ice to Eskimos?
Yes.
Maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe what they should do is hurry up and get the police cars out there, because if people see electric police cars and they understand the hard cycles of use that police cars get, maybe that will help convince some of the brotherhood that these are not silly toys that are here today, gone tomorrow.
Serious machines.
Serious machines.
Yep.
At least that's what I felt sitting behind the wheel. All right, now we're done.
OldTFL.com.
Ciao.
Remember.